Imagine walking into a bank, expecting a routine transaction, only to be met with an unexpected twist. A black woman enters the bank, and as she approaches the teller for assistance, the clerk refuses to serve her, citing an issue with her ID. But little does the teller know, this woman isn't just another customer. She's about to reveal that she's the new owner of the very bank he works for. The shock and tension in the air are palpable as the teller stands frozen, unaware of the storm he's about to face. Will the teller apologize, or will he dig his heels in and risk everything? The stakes are high, and in this power dynamic, one mistake could change everything. Stay tuned, because this story is far from over. The woman, standing tall with quiet confidence, watches the teller nervously tap his fingers on the counter. She doesn't flinch at the cold reception. Instead, her eyes narrow slightly as she reaches into her bag. The bank has always been a place of power, but she knows something this teller doesn't. She now holds that power in her hands. After months of negotiations, meetings, and careful planning, she became the new majority shareholder of the bank, securing her position as its owner. But how could she ever expect to be treated fairly when, even now, people like this teller still hold onto outdated prejudices? As she slides a small piece of paper across the counter, her silence speaks volumes. It's not just an ID, it's the key to her authority. The teller's face pales as he glances at the paper, realizing the gravity of the situation. What will happen next? The teller's hand trembles as he picks up the paper, his eyes darting back and forth between the woman and the piece of paper, struggling to process what he's just seen. He hesitates, unsure of how to react, his mind racing. The power dynamic has shifted, and it's clear that he's in deep trouble. The woman remains composed, a subtle smile tugging at the corner of her lips. But there's an icy chill in her gaze that sends a shiver down his spine. She's no longer just a customer. She's a force he doesn't fully understand. Behind him, a few customers are starting to notice the tension. Whispers ripple through the line. One of them, an older man in a suit, leans forward, his eyes narrowing with curiosity. He's seen things like this before. People being treated unfairly, dismissed because of their appearance or background. But this time, it's different. This time, the woman holds all the cards. The teller fumbles for words, but nothing comes out. Meanwhile, the woman knows that this moment could define the rest of her journey. She's been underestimated her whole life, but now she holds the keys to change an entire system. But is she willing to bring the consequences of that power to light? The tension in the air is thick, and the question lingers. Will this small act of defiance spark a bigger shift within the bank, or will it crumble under the weight of an unforgiving past? The teller, his face flushed with panic, finally opens his mouth, but the words are garbled, unconvincing. He stammers, I'm sorry, ma'am, but there seems to be some mistake." The woman's eyes don't leave his for a second. Her hand rests lightly on the counter, but the weight of her presence seems to press down on him, making the room feel smaller, tighter. The older man in the line has stopped whispering, now fully watching the scene unfold. His eyes flicker from the teller to the woman, sensing the power struggle that's playing out in front of him. He's seen enough to know this moment could be pivotal, but what will happen when the truth comes to light? The others in line are no longer just bystanders. They're witnesses. The air hums with anticipation. The teller, now visibly sweating, turns to his supervisor, who's standing nearby, oblivious to the brewing storm. His desperation is evident, but no one seems to know how to handle the situation. The woman, who has said nothing so far, takes a step forward. "I don't think you understand," she says, her voice calm, but every syllable cuts through the tension like a knife. "I'm not just any customer. I own this bank." The room goes silent. Even the supervisor, who has been glancing at his phone, finally looks up. For a moment, it feels like time has stopped. The teller's face drains of color, his hands shaking now, and the customers hold their breath. What will happen next? Would the supervisor side with the woman? Would the teller's mistake cost him everything? All eyes are on the woman, the one person in the room who knows exactly what's at stake. The silence is deafening, and the tension is unbearable. Just as the room remains still, with all eyes on the woman, a sharp voice cuts through the silence. "You know exactly who I am," she says, her voice unwavering but low enough to carry a dangerous edge. But before the manager can respond, the older man in line suddenly speaks up, his voice cutting through the growing tension. "Are you going to let them treat her like this?" he demands, his frustration clear. The words hang in the air, but before anyone can react, the manager's eyes widen. This isn't just about a customer's complaint anymore. With a tight smile, the woman steps forward, showing the manager a piece of paper, a document that shouldn't exist, yet somehow it does. His eyes flick to it, and his face shifts, the color draining from his cheeks. The truth was worse than he had imagined. This wasn't just a dispute over a transaction. She had already outmaneuvered him in a way he hadn't expected. The manager's mouth opens, but no words come out. The stakes have escalated, and the woman knows this is just the beginning. The manager may be the final piece of the puzzle that unravels everything. But what will he do now that he's caught in the crossfire? As the tension rises to its peak, the whole room feels like it's holding its breath, waiting for a revelation that could shake the foundation of the bank itself. The tension in the room is suffocating as the manager stares at the paper, his hands visibly shaking. He knows exactly what it is, and the weight of its implications hangs over him like a storm cloud. The woman doesn't wait for him to speak. "This is the legal paperwork transferring the majority shares of this bank to me," she says calmly, watching his face pale further. "I'm the new owner." For a moment, there's only silence. The teller's mouth is open, but he's too stunned to form words. The manager looks from the paper to her, his mind racing to calculate his next move. His reputation, his career, it's all hanging by a thread. But before he can respond, the older man in line steps forward again. "You should have known who you were dealing with from the start," he says, his voice thick with judgment. "People like her, they don't get pushed around. You should have respected her." The manager seems to snap out of his daze and quickly clears his throat, offering a forced smile. "Of course, ma'am, my apologies. I'll have everything sorted immediately." But as he turns to walk away, something unexpected happens. The woman takes a step back, her eyes narrowing. "Actually," she says, her voice icy now, "I'm not done." Everyone in the room freezes as she pulls out another document, this one much thicker, and slides it across the counter. The manager hesitates before glancing down at it. His expression falters as he sees the title, "Full Audit of Bank Operations." His eyes widen in disbelief. "You've been hiding financial discrepancies for months," she continues, her voice steady but tinged with a dark undertone, "and have already spoken to the authorities." The realization hits the room like a shockwave. The manager stumbles back, and the teller's face is a mix of confusion and fear. The older man's eyes gleam with satisfaction, realizing the woman had been playing a much larger game than anyone knew. As the weight of her words sinks in, the room shifts. The manager, now completely shaken, looks like a man who has just realized he's out of options. But just as it seems like she's won, there's a final twist. From the back office, a shadowy figure emerges, another bank employee, one the woman recognizes all too well. It's the man who had initially helped her purchase the shares. But his grin isn't one of support. Instead, he steps forward and says, "Congratulations. You've played the game well, but you're not the only one with a stake in this." The woman's heart skips a beat as the room turns cold once again. Just when she thought she had everything under control, the game had changed once more. The room holds its breath as the figure steps forward, but the woman's expression hardens. She's seen enough to know when someone's trying to play her. "You've been working with them all along?" she asks, her voice cold. The man smirks but doesn't answer immediately. But before he can make his move, the woman reveals the final twist. She's already one step ahead. The supposed ally had been outmaneuvered before he even realized it. She had arranged for the bank's full audit to go public, and with it, any illegal activities would be exposed. The man's grin fades, replaced by panic. In an instant, everything shifts. The man retreats, and the manager, realizing the depth of his miscalculations, scrambles to salvage what little he can. The teller stands frozen, eyes wide. As the woman walks out of the bank, she knows the fight isn't over. But today, at least, she's won. Power is never handed to you. It's taken, and she's just claimed hers.